What's going on, everyone? It's been a little while since I did a solo stream. Every time I do these streams, I end up bringing guests and other people like that. And I thought it would probably be kind of fun to, number one, do a solo stream and kind of just kind of hang out on my own a little bit for a little and kind of share some things. I did a talk last night that went really, really well. And I thought it would be great, honestly, to kind of bring that together with the stream today. And so, fun fact, we just finished recording the new episode of the programming podcast. And so that should be coming out relatively shortly. And Leon and I, as we were talking, I think the topic that we're talking about that I'm going to kind of go over on the stream as well. So that way we can kind of have all that nuance together. But I really enjoyed it. And so I think there's like a lot that we can go over. So what's going on, Frank? Hey. Got Frank hanging out over here and whatnot. But I thought it would be cool to kind of come do this. The dev Alex, what's going on? There was something very interesting that happened. And I spoke about this a little bit on LinkedIn. I don't believe I posted about this at all on any of my other socials of Blue Sky, Twitter, etc. And I saw something that happened the other day. And that was Steam came out with a new product, a console. And my friends in Discord were kind of talking about it. And I was like, oh, this would be cool to kind of figure out, see what it is that they're talking about. I like Steam. We play some games together and stuff. So I went to the website, and I guess it was just my luck, but they had some like actual pretty massive production errors happening at that time. And I took a screenshot of it, jokingly sharing it with people in the Discord, and they didn't understand why this was a big deal. And the funny thing was, a lot of them are developers. And I was like, oh, maybe this could be an interesting topic. And so we had a meetup already scheduled for yesterday. Anyway, I scraped my entire talk. I'll probably do it at another date, but I did it all on this. And I felt like this is not any shade to them. It happens to developers of all levels. But I think like there's a lot of learning value that could come out of that one in particular. And so I was like, oh, we could probably make an entire talk out of this and things of that nature. And so that's kind of where my mind went in that regard. So I'll probably share my screen in a moment, waiting for everybody to keep coming in. I'll see Whittington here for the leak secrets. I will say I do have the screenshot, and I will share the screenshot, but I have hidden all of like their internal details. I'm not sharing the screenshot of the console logs because there was definitely like some stuff in there that probably shouldn't be. And I don't want to be that guy. But I feel like at the very least, as software developers, there's a lot that we could learn and probably take back to our own companies and really just kind of grow from the experience as a whole. And I think that's where like the inherent value is, if I'm being completely honest. So sharing that there. All right, cool. Let me share this out super fast. I got to share one more thing here. Let me share this real fast. Oh, we got quite a few people on LinkedIn. Oh, I didn't realize that. It is a thing. There is no psych to say because unfortunately it is true. It did happen. And yeah, so I will share the screenshot so that way people can see and kind of learn from it and kind of go from it. But I'm going to ping my Discord real fast because I did tell them that I would be. Everyone, I am live on LinkedIn. Bop. Okay, so just shared that there and all the good stuff. So this is the thing. Yeah. So did you end up buying it? This is actually the real question, and I will actually show you. This is not like a sponsored stream or whatever. And fun fact, by the way, I'll share my screen real fast for this one. Fun fact that I just discovered a few minutes ago. If you Google Steam Machine production error, I'm like one of the first posts that pop up for some reason. Go figure. Earlier today, I was the first one, but it looks like these other things have popped up instead. But I will say Steam Machine. I forgot what the website link. Here we go. I was almost sold on it for one thing alone. I got to realize I got to zoom in because this right here, LED strip, you got me. You made that section, you got me. I might have to spend money on this one. You got me. Michael, what's going on? Hey. Okay. There's a lot that I kind of want to cover here, and I'm going to pull up my slides that I did for the talk, but it's mainly because like there's valuable info that I think we can kind of go over on that one, and kind of like really share. And so let's kind of address this a little bit and maybe make like a good learning moment out of this for everybody, right? I got some code here that I'm going to show too and all that good stuff, but hopefully this will be valuable. I'm a very big believer in like value for time. So I'm hoping that we can do justice to that here and make sure that you get some value for your time. By the way, just as a side note, I know we got so many. Hey, Danny loves his effects. I am a sucker. If you want to sell me something, I am a straight up sucker for anything with a really cool, well-placed hover effect. And I don't mean a hover effect that's over the top. Those I don't like. But if you have a very well-placed, very thought-focused hover effect, you've got me clicking on it, hovering over it. You'll sell me on anything that you want at that point, right? You know me well. What's going on, Alexia? What's going on, Carmen? Thanks for hanging out. Okay. Cool. Let's get these slides. And fun fact, I had these slides originally in Google Slides, but the venue where we do it at does not allow Google products. And so because of that, we have to convert it over to all these other tools. Is this accurate? This can be accurate. Do we have that many people hanging out here right now? Hey. What's going on, Eduardo? We have 150 people hanging out right now? Really? Tell us your thoughts on GSAP. Hey, I'm not against GSAP. There's some cool stuff there. I've actually... I'm trying to remember her. I know her real name. I'm trying to remember her like YouTube name. I think it's Coder, if I'm not mistaken. She can do some amazing things with stuff like that. Transition times, 300 milliseconds for sure. Dude, I'm on YouTube. Thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I've got some tutorials that I've recorded, and I just need to actually get to editing them. That's the time-consuming part. But once it is edited, I do plan to have a few tutorials coming out probably this weekend or early next weekend, one of the two. The idea here is that the tutorials in particular, we have some tutorials like how not to commit your API keys, because apparently this is a whole thing right now that we need to go over. And the API key thing just in general, we just had somebody make a mistake recently. I think it was last week or it was the week before last, if I'm not mistaken. They committed their Google Cloud API key and it created a $55,000 bill in 60 minutes. People are still doing this, unfortunately. So I felt like maybe making a tutorial around this, since when I mentioned it in the Discord, several people had like comments on how they could prevent this from happening to them. So there's obviously like a learning gap in that regard. I think that could be valuable to put out. But I am thinking about doing a couple like full course related items. But I'm trying to take education in a slightly different light, because I know maybe these 10-hour courses get clicks, but that reality of people actually finishing a 10-hour course isn't necessarily there. And so my thought is, how do we close that gap for a lot of people? That's kind of where my mind is right now on that one. And, all that good stuff, unfortunately. Let's see here. Okay. We have some people on YouTube hanging out. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you. I see y'all. LinkedIn, we definitely got some people hanging out. That's for sure. And I guess Twitter, we have some people hanging out. Okay, cool. I did not realize that. We got quite a few people hanging out. All right. So let's talk about this today. We have a lot to talk about, and a lot that we got to hit on. And so I'm going to kind of start with a tough question, okay? And especially if you're a developer that works in the industry, you would kind of be familiar with this. And it's what happens when you get that 2 a.m. Slack message from your boss, the one that says, is the site down? Or worse, what happens when you're called into a 7 a.m. meeting with a red-faced CTO and they're holding a screenshot of your application? What do? You just wrote code. What should you do? Today, my focus, honestly, is going to be to show you the exact mistakes that leads to that meeting. It's a mistake that cost companies millions, which is no small number, obviously. And it all starts with something that we think is kind of boring, and it's error handling. And I know it sounds boring because maybe to a certain degree it is, right? But here's the truth: improper error handling is not a bug, but it's an actual vulnerability. It's listed by OWASP. It's how attackers discover your tech stacks. It's how they find your database schemas. It's literally how they steal API keys from your code. And the reality is, a lot of front-end developers or a lot of newer developers, they may have this misconception that a lot of security should be handled on the back end. But the thing that I'm trying to get through to a lot of people here is, especially in regards to the front end of your application, attackers or hackers with malicious intent love the front end of a website because this is the actual area of code that they get to see, they get to mess with, they get to see a minified version of your source code, maybe minified, maybe not. But it gives them a starting point to start trying to find areas to expose. Happy Friday, y'all. We're so back. We are back. Absolutely, absolutely. And because of that exposure, there's a lot that needs to happen. And honestly, you could do everything right, and you leave one input field without validation, or you expose one environment variable, or maybe you have a wrong check that is looking for whether it's the development environment or production environment, and because you have the wrong check there, it's displaying the wrong information. Simple things lead to massive issues. This is why QA is a thing. This is why there's tons of items in that regard. But things still slip through, and it goes back onto you doing your due diligence of making sure that your front end is secure in a way that makes everyone's life a little bit easier. I still remember the first demo that I saw in real time of SQL injection. That alone taught me a lot. It really brought a lot to my mind and exposed me to a lot. And it really got me in an interesting mindset of how to avoid certain things. Now, obviously, this talk was inspired by something that I alluded to earlier. That was Steam Machine. When I went to their website, there was a production error there. Now, let's look at what this production error kind of looks like, right? This is exactly what I saw verbatim. Now, I have an ultra-wide monitor, so this is probably more zoomed out than normal. But essentially, they had a video playing here. They had this error. In this error, it literally had the naming conventions internally of what the item was that is probably being stored in their database. Then they had a variable here, cannot read properties of undefined reading, and it was the variable name of said item. That terrifies me. That terrifies me in so many ways. Number one, we've gone from obscure to actually leaking internal naming conventions. Now, obviously, I covered this up. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to expose anything here, but I am trying to show a little bit to kind of show that this was a real error. And I'll kind of zoom in a little bit on this one so you can kind of see something went wrong while displaying this content. There's a refresh button. By the way, very optimistic. I kept clicking in it. Nothing happened, right? But I will say that, yeah, oh, that's bad. 1,000%. Like, I'm not afraid of a 404 error showing. I'm not afraid of maybe a button not matching a color palette. I'm terrified of leaking internal data to the public. If someone has malicious intent, that's terrible. But if, let's just say, for example, because I think a lot about like the actual user of something. If you have a user that is coming to your website and they're ready to spend money. Like, the Steam Machine is not like a $10 item, right? Like, we're talking hundreds. That I don't actually know what it costs because I never got that far in the process because of the experience. Let me just see what this thing cost again. I'm just curious. It has to be expensive. It can't be cheap, right? Buy now. Oh, you can favorite. You can add it to a wish list. It's not out yet. So, okay. That's why I didn't see a price. No bueno. I completely agree. There's a lot of variables. But as a consumer, They could have avoided this, by the way, if they saw my talk that I gave 4 years ago on React error boundaries. I gave it at Render ATL, and this talk would have saved them from this. But trust with consumers is not built just by giving information or showing something. Trust is built by giving the right information at the right time with the right context. This lacks all of that, right? And so now, if I'm in a scenario where I'm ready to spend money, this is terrible. Just coming back to this, but these are for sure secrets and not generated object keys. Theoretically, it could be. If you saw the full naming, I don't know how that would be the case here, but it's definitely internal naming conventions for sure. Now, the console logs, which I'm not showing, definitely had way more valuable items that shouldn't be shown to the public. So like that one, I'm not even trying to blur that one because it's just going to expose stuff. But that shouldn't have been showcased either. So there was errors on two different sides, but this one felt safer to show to the public than the other one for me. But they're definitely like the actual values. So for example, like if you just look here, cannot read properties of reading video, and it was the actual name of the video item that they're trying to show. There's no way that's a key. That's significantly more. Here's this question here. If you know the structure of the folder system, databases, or even application like schemas, objects, you've opened a big door for someone with bad intentions. Absolutely. Because even if their objective is just brute forcing stuff, at least now they have a starting point versus anything else. Some people just need a little sliver of something to know that they're going down the right path, essentially, which is, sometimes a scary item. Okay. So it kind of goes back to something that I'm saying earlier. Are you 100% confident right now that your production catch blocks aren't just returning like error.message, which in this situation, that's kind of what's happening here, right? So today I've built a demo that we're going to kind of mess with and go over a little bit to kind of showcase what you could be doing. And so my idea thought, I don't want to create a Steam machine store because again, no hate to anyone that was part of the team. It's kind of part of development. There's always going to be something that happens. You learn from it, grow from it. And I'm using this as an educational item for us as software developers to kind of grow with this as well. Because I think there's a lot of learning that can kind of come from this and the way that we would expose it. So the Steam incident in particular, there was an error ID with store, which is obviously like coming from their database, their internal naming convention, and the errors that came with it. So obviously this is bad because not only are we exposing internal naming conventions, but there was also full stack trace visibles to end users, database connection strings and error responses, API endpoint paths that are potentially exposed. It's not necessarily something that you would expect from a multi-billion-dollar company accidentally giving away the blueprint for their infrastructure. And if Steam can make this mistake, the reality is, how many of us are doing the same thing right now with our code bases? And it's not just a Steam-related item. Lord knows how many other companies are falling for the same things. It really just goes back to processes and habits and making sure people are following those processes. And it also comes back to not just the code reviews, but the code reviews is definitely like a big factor here. Like, are you ensuring that you're checking out the conventions and the processes that you should be? Because a lot can fall in that area alone, right? So that's something that you need to be thinking about as well. How much due diligence are you putting into the code review process? Greetings and salutations. Thanks for hanging out with us. LinkedIn user, I can't see who it is. Aloha. Happy that you can make it. I'm happy too. We haven't done a solo live stream in a while, so I'm glad that so many people are showing up. Thank you. According to StreamYard, we have almost 300 people in here. Thanks for hanging out. This is great. And so hopefully we'll get a lot of value for your time. I'm constantly thinking about value for time, so hopefully you're getting some of it here. Okay, awesome. The best error handling is often completely invisible to the user, but it's a fortress to someone that is trying to attack you, right? Wash your outputs with some yes, wash it with some Fabuloso. Absolutely. That's funny, actually. That caught me off guard. I was like, oh, there's going to be some value here. Boom, Fabuloso. That was unexpected. Awesome. So what are the costs of some of these exposures if you're not familiar with this? Number one, obviously, it should be the security risk, right? So free recon for attackers, stack traces, DB connection strings, internal paths, etc. Poor UX, I think, which is bigger, because it's one thing for it to like help an attacker. It's another thing to potentially lose a customer long term just because you don't have like a fallback UI, or you're not using reference errors or something along those lines. Like you're not catching the error. That's just a terrible situation for everybody involved. Technical errors would obviously create some uncertainty and frustration when users can't understand to a certain degree like what's going wrong, right? Obviously, a debugging nightmare. So if you're having errors like this that you're not even catching, you're passing to the front end, you're probably not logging them either, which is a big issue. You should be logging all errors. It should be easy to pinpoint these. So if you're using something like Sentry or Datadog or something along those lines, like you should be able to have logs that are pinpointing it or at least catching it, so that way when you're trying to debug and find them, it's easy to find. Error details scattered across just a UI alone is honestly, it's a lack of proper systems. Trust erosion, which is another one. Trust erosion to me is you're exposing errors. It obviously signals, in my opinion, some level of unprofessionalism, fragility. It creates doubt. So in the example of the talk that I gave with React error boundaries, it was the example that I gave was in the banking industry, right? With the banking industry in particular, or not even just banking, but anytime money is involved in something, trust is one area that it's a non-negotiable. One example that I'll give you of this, by the way, this was 2 months ago. I have a mortgage for my house, and I was going to go pay my mortgage. And when I logged into the user side, I saw 8 red box toast messages that were errors. Scared the hell out of me. So much so that I called customer service and said, hey, I don't feel comfortable entering my information to submit this payment because I don't even know if it's going to submit it more than once now because of this. We either need to come up with another form where I can submit the payment, or we need to push this back a day so your team can figure out what's going on, so that way I could then submit my payment. I don't want to submit my payment 4, 5, 6 times, especially like when you're talking like multi-$1,000 payments, not a $10 payment, but multi-thousands. I'm not about to have 30 grand, 40 grand sitting on the side because you have an error on your website that's processing it multiple times. Like that scares the heck out of me. Anything important till now? Yes, you've literally missed everything. Yeah, how should I start detecting if secrets are already leaking? One is logging it, all right? But we're going to kind of go to everything. I'm new to code base and would like to know if this is already happening. Yeah, a lot of testing, a lot of reading, I think is a big one, logging and seeing things. But if you don't have an error like this one from Steam's website, that's probably a good indicator that you're probably not leaking something in the most egregious way, but there's probably stuff that could be happening other places that you should probably be looking into, right? And so this is the kind of the cost of these exposed errors, right? And so let me go ahead and start this server locally. I thought I already did start it. My apologies on that one. Starting it, and I'll showcase this code over here, and we can kind of go through it. All right. And so now, whoops, I minimized all y'all. There we go. All right. So let me bring this code over. Oh, yeah. 5 production ready patterns that we're going to cover today. Obviously, since I already kind of mentioned it, React error boundaries. What is a React error boundary? Essentially, it's catching a rendered error or crash, and it prevents the components that are failing from bringing down the entire application. So if you think about the application tree as a whole, generally speaking in React, if one fails, it might make the tree fail, right? Where you often see like the white screen that you don't want to see, right? The idea then is if you have a fallback UI for that error, you'll show something else instead. And because of that, the application still stays up, obviously, but it's also a way to continue maintaining trust with your users. We'll also cover environment-specific handling. I think that one is a good one. So like, for example, let's say you have environment variables set to look for like development. Maybe you're in the development environment, maybe testing environment, QA environment, et cetera, whatever it may be. Maybe based on that, it's showing certain things to the developer so that way they can see what's being passed. But you probably wouldn't want to show that in production. So having error handling around that, I think, is very valuable. Third-party API wrappers, I think, is another one. if we have time, we'll go over custom error classes and of course retry with like exponential backoffs. I think I'll at least show that at the very least, because I think from a UI perspective, it's really valuable. But again, I'm not like a master genius on UI UX environments. I'm just a consumer of things, and so this is kind of where my mind went to. But I'm sure maybe there's data somewhere that I'm not privy to or knowledgeable on that may say if you do XYZ instead, it yields better results. But I will say my solution probably is better than the solutions that we came across in this scenario. But for each pattern, we're going to examine like a broken version of it, which is the vulnerability, a fixed version of it, which is like basic fix, and then a final version of like what this would look like if it was actually working with no errors. So that way you can kind of see everything together, right? Okay, so let's kind of go here and we'll change this to localhost 3000. Would you argue that these errors were exposed in the UI could also be a flaw in the framework? No. And I think the reasoning that I come to for that specifically is this comes back down to the users. So no matter what the framework is going to do, if a user is just not following processes, what other framework will you have where they will negate a process? I know that there's Vue propaganda that I see here, but even then, there are processes in Vue that if a user or a developer is just ignoring, something can still happen. It just comes back to the level of, are you following the process? Are you reducing your levels of negligence, et cetera, et cetera? And are you just making sure that there's something there? But I also think if we're being pragmatic about it, React, being semantic here, is a library. But because of that, even if you were to use a framework like Next.js, et cetera, it's still upon you to bring in the libraries. When you're looking at an entire framework as Vue or Angular, you get a lot out of the box. Vue is not hack proof. So regardless of what you're putting in place there, if someone has malicious intent and someone is not following processes, it still opens the door for a lot of things. We have Naomi here. Naomi, about to see Danny's project. Yes. Would you recommend leveraging a generic error component to have a unified way to display errors as needed? Yes. So a fallback UI is great for scenarios like that. I think there's a lot of areas that you can kind of jump into in that regard. That could definitely be one of them for sure. And we're going to kind of display that in a second. I sense suspense. That's a good one. Okay. So this is just a basic website on like a library. This is kind of where my mind came about in regards to the demo that I came up with for the meetup, which we're using here. But the reason why it came to me in particular was I could see a couple scenarios of where this could potentially happen. So each page has an error, and we're going to kind of go through it so that way we can kind of grow with it and learn through it. So here's the book catalog, right? And so this is on the lines somewhat similar to the error that we saw via Steam Machine, right? And let me zoom in a little more because I realize I have ultra wide and it looks small to y'all. Y'all are killing me. Y'all are killing. Hold on. I'm showing this for the chat. If you're on a different platform, you don't see it. LinkedIn is obviously where the chat is today. I sense suspense. Naomi comes back with, the suspense is killing me. And then Charles actually brought it home, just gathering as much context as possible. Y'all are funny today. Okay. Why aren't y'all funny like this when I have guests? That's my question. When I have guests on here, we don't get these jokes. It's so serious. This is good. That was funny, actually. I'm actually screenshotting that one. I'm going to throw that in the Discord. That is funny. I'm going to throw that in the Discord. Y'all crack me up on this one. All right. Cool. So obviously, this is an error that we have here. And this error is somewhat on the similar lines of the Steam Machine error, where we're definitely giving out internal values, the IDs or whatever it is that may be, and we're showcasing that it is null, right? And I mean, there's API routes there as well. We have the stack trace there. This is stuff we would never want to show somebody. Now, a solution to this would be an error boundary. So going back to the code here, we will then look here, and we can kind of go through what I have developed here. This was pretty cool. So we have our basic book page where we have the error that we're throwing here. We're not catching anything. We're just setting the error and we're loading it. And so we're just showing error.message, unfortunately. And because of that, that's why we're seeing everything that we're seeing, right? Like this is not something that you'd ever want optimistically, or you wouldn't want to show to an end user. So what is the solution for this? Well, the solution comes around React error boundaries. So our error boundary, it's a React pattern, obviously, for catching JavaScript errors, TypeScript errors, anywhere in the component tree and logging it. And the hope is that obviously we're not losing our tree anymore because we have something that's replacing it. So component rendering errors, it doesn't work for asynchronous code. So this would work for other scenarios, but nothing async related or an event handler specifically. So when not to use it, obviously it's going to be event handlers, asynchronous, and anything SSR related, so server-side rendering. And why this broke the pattern, this broken version exposes stack traces. How do I close this? Oh. So yeah, let's kind of go through this real fast. I'll share like the GitHub repo as well if people want to see that. But I mean, this is just basic to kind of for demonstrable purposes. But you can see here we have this loading state, right? So if we're in is loading, showcase this. If it's no longer loading and we see an error, let's catch this error boundary. And so what does our error boundary essentially look like at this stage? So we have an error boundary that we created, nothing, out of this world or unreal. It just says, hey, we apologize for the inconvenience. We pass a user error, which is like, our error ID, which is the reference number. And you can save this reference number if you want to contact customer support. This already is significantly better. And because we've built this UI, we're able to display something. So if we now, zoom in. Sorry. This is the one issue with ultra wides. But this now becomes so big that let me hide the terminal. Is this easier to read? I apologize. I zoomed in on the other thing and I forgot about my actual editor itself. I'll wait for y'all to tell me if this is big or if I need to go bigger. Are we good? There must be a delay. I'm just going to assume that we're okay now. Okay, perfect. And I'll go from there. All right. So perfect. So now we can kind of see here. So I'll kind of just showcase this again. We have this error boundary. So we're looking for the is loading state. If we see an error, we want to go ahead and catch it in this error boundary here, right? And we want to showcase what this is. So any error here, we would kind of default to. And obviously our fallback will have our reset and we'll have our error that we're passing in, right? Obviously, we're passing like unable to load books. We encountered an issue, et cetera, and error reference for the error ID number, right? And then we'll end the boundary. But if the error boundary, obviously, if the error isn't there, then because we wrapped our component in it, we'll just go to our book list, right? And so we'll showcase our books if no error is present, and that'll work that way. And so our error boundary, you can see here, it's just a basic kind of UI that we built to kind of showcase things and display information the way that we would need it. So what does that look like here? And then kind of think through this for a little bit, right? Like what would someone maybe as an attacker think through this? Oh, okay. What is this? Select star from books. Okay, interesting. So we now know that they have a books table, right? That's obvious. And then we also know that there is an internal schema. And in that schema, we kind of see their internal ID structures. And then we see, obviously, what's this? Like, we see the app source book repository.ts file. We now know that this is at like line 145. This just really handed them an actual blueprint of everything that they would need. And that's kind of terrifying. And so now if we have our fallback UI, we obviously have our React error boundary showing. And now we have just a basic book image, nothing crazy. And then unable to load the books. We encountered an issue on the loading book catalog. Please try again. And then our reference error if they want to contact customer service, right? And then we could retry the loading. nothing happens there, but you notice each time the reference error changes, so that way it's dynamic and they know every single time that something is happening there. Now, of course, if everything was working as the way that we would hope it would be working, we now see a list of books that populate and pop up. Now, of course, you see like, hey, this one right there, if you haven't gotten your book yet, hey, shameless plug. But it's, that book right there. That book right there. If you haven't checked that one out yet, you can go to developersguide.ai. But I and two other authors wrote this phenomenal book on AI, and it approaches it from a very different standpoint. The idea there was, hey, we want to write a book for AI, but we want to write it for the average corporate developer that doesn't have a desire or interest to become a data scientist. They just want to keep working in their jobs, in their career, in their companies. They want to make an impact. They want to stay relevant. If they get asked certain things about AI, they're able to articulate it and talk about it and do some things that would really bring an impact that's measurable in the company. But it will not be like, you're not making predictive models here. You're just doing what you need to do in order to make the impact in the role that you have. And I don't see front end, back end roles necessarily disappearing. I do see the line getting blurred more and more. And I've been vocal about that since 2022. But this right here will probably help a lot of y'all, especially if you're working like a Fortune 500 or a company at that level. This would definitely help y'all make the impact that your higher ups are probably looking for, and probably would be the thing that gets you like those raises or promotions or things of that nature. Was the AI book written with AI? Actually, no, surprisingly. It was, funny enough, a lot of the AI that we ran into when we were trialing and erroring, when it came to explaining basic things, didn't do it in a way that I felt did justice. I really like to think through how humans learn, and that's kind of where the approach was. So if you want to check it out, you can go to developersguide.ai. It's actually picked up by No Starch Press, same people that did Automate the Boring Stuff. You can do pre-orders right now. I do know for a fact we are well over and past $10,000 in pre-sales. But if you do the pre-sale, you do get the ebook and all the good stuff, so you get it right away. And then when I believe it comes out early next year, it'll be shipped to you wherever you are in the world. So much hatred. Mods banned this guy for advertising. Devon was digging this UI. Thank you. I try to keep it simple, nothing crazy, but I felt like it does the job, right? It displays what we need. I'm sure there's definitely ways that we can optimize this, but for what we're trying to do here, I feel like this is good. So now we kind of understand to a certain degree, going from the problem again, this, to seeing our fix, this is a much better experience. It builds, obviously, trust with the consumer. They know something went wrong. And from here, we now know, like, okay, we wouldn't want to display certain things in that nature. Now, to kind of counteract that, I believe it was reservations that has this issue, right? Yes. So you can see here, we'll go to reservations next. So here, reservations, we could have this theoretical error. We wouldn't want to post a stack trace, obviously, right? And obviously with this, we have some security issues exposed, right? We have our internal IP addresses and ports that are revealed, which obviously we wouldn't want. We have host names that are even being, not saying this is related to Steam, but this is like a different error and a different way of handling that error. Now, the worst obviously would be like revealing an internal API key. That would be wild. But it does happen, unfortunately. And so we need to kind of be very vigilant, especially in today's market where people are literally looking for this information and searching it out. You want to kind of stay on top of that, right? And you want to make sure like you're doing what you need to do to kind of avoid whatever would be an issue for you, right? That's kind of the way that I'm thinking about this. Oh, let's kind of go over this real fast. Now think about it. Let me bring back my code. I know it's huge. And then safe error displaying. Or do I have just basic styles? Nothing crazy here. There is something I wanted to show here. Open error handling. There we go. So you can kind of see here, this is where I was going to go with this. We have some sanitized and replaced items, and obviously this is using like regex and things like that, right? I would go ahead for this. I'll be honest, since AI came out, I've probably pretty much stopped memorizing regex, and I will look it up more than anything else now because I just don't think it's a good use of time. Because especially my circle of life when it comes to AI, regex in general, is every single time I spend months learning everything about it, 6 to 8 months go by where I don't use it a single time and I forget everything, right? So I'm about to show you the guts of like this whole system, and it's this file right here of how everything's opening. And so this is what I call like the sleep at night engine. This is the code that ensures you are never the person in that 7 a.m. meeting where your CTO is upset at you, right? You can literally take this file, drop it in a project, and be much safer because of it. And so let's kind of talk through this a little bit. Number one, message sanitization. You should be sanitizing everything. So look at this. This is a policy. We're not like going through this and saying, hey, expose us to anything. It's like, if we have certain messages that need to be sanitized, let's replace it. So let's replace our paths with this. Let's replace our internal IDs, redacted information, emails, IPs, bearer tokens, or regular tokens. We need to replace all of that and sanitize it. Like, that's an easy way to kind of go about that sanitization, in my opinion. There's other methods and ways to do it as well, but I feel like this is kind of a good one as well. We would also want to generate our error IDs. So I like to generate them with timestamps so that way people know when it was, and so when we're logging it, we're able to obviously find that and whatnot. We want to have sanitized objects, right? So what are some of the keys for that? Obviously, you have your password, your token, API keys, and because some people like to add like an underscore, I like to have both just in case. Secret, authorization, auth, credit card, SSN, obviously social security. Any PII should not even be going to the front end in that regard, in my opinion, or being sent back. But if it is, we should be obviously redacting that and kind of going through it. Now, there's other things too. I remember working for a company where PII, when it came to like card number, they wanted to display like the last 4 digits. So you'd have to come up with some regex for that to showcase the last 4. So you could have like a split or parse it in a certain way. But regardless, that's kind of the way that I'd be taking it. And I don't want to look at like what someone's password is, right? Just redact it. Like the token or maybe even the password hash, gone. I don't necessarily want to see it. Doesn't too much regex open you up for RDoS attacks? I don't necessarily know if this would qualify as too much regex. I mean, we're just sanitizing, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 areas. Yeah, exactly. It also depends on the regex and what you're matching. Like these, I don't feel like you're in any vulnerable state at this point using that, especially when we're talking about 9 instances of sanitization. This is valuable. Your biggest risk with regex is when you're using significant backtracking on arbitrary user inputs. Yeah, that would not be what we're doing in this regard. This would be post submission, not during the entry phase of it. So just imagine your catch block is this clean. So imagine you can prove to your boss like, hey, I'm not the one leaking this data. This file gives me that security of knowing that in the conversations. Also, error categorization. Like this is a big one to me. So when we're creating the error, we should be categorizing it in a certain way. So obviously, the biggest thing here is like all errors are not the same. Is it a network glitch? Is it a wrong password? Is it something of some varying level? So you shouldn't be logging it the same. You shouldn't be treating it the same. There should be some variance there, and your app wouldn't treat it the same either. So look at this, for example, like where is it? So we have error severities there. Okay. Okay. To user-facing errors. So obviously we have our network errors. So if we have a network error, for example, we would want to log this. We couldn't connect to our servers. Please check your internet connection and check again. Instead of logging that error in a user-facing way, we would want to log it for us, but we wouldn't want to pass this in a network tab if somebody has the ability, for example, to kind of start checking through consoles or anything like that. We should be sanitizing that in whatever degree that we could. Now, when we go here, we can log our errors internally. We would now have what is the environment. So we're obviously using our like .node underscore environment variables. So if it's equal to dev environment, here's what we want to log. Here's the severity of it. So we have that categorization there and everything along those lines. And then, of course, the ways that we're handling that error, right? We can get an error message as well. So, and if the error is in the instance of error, log the message. If it's a string, let's just log the error itself. So you're thinking about varying ways of that you can get that and kind of making sure that you're protecting yourself in that regard. Cool. And so now let me go back. Where is my components? Error handling. And so here is the reservation list. So as we were talking about with the reservation list, right? Here with reservations, did I just see something? Yeah. So here with reservations, you see that this is the error, right? So what does the fix look like? So we have these attempts, and after several attempts, either it's a success or it would then log. But if you noticed, going back here and going to the fix again, you notice there's that spinner. It showcases that something is happening over a time period. For a user, at least they now know actively that there's an attempt to reconnect. If it fails, they now have a better experience of knowing, like, okay, there's a disconnect somewhere, and we could go back to the default of what this error state was, of providing a reference error if they wanted to contact customer service to share that with them. That right there would be a much better failure to the UI and the user experience overall. But of course, if we want to just see how this would work together, maybe have some books reserved. This one's ready to pick up. Cool on you. And then you have George Orwell's 1984 reserved, and you'd want to pick that up as well. And of course, you could remove that and whatnot. Ooh, WebDev Cody in the house. Sup, man? This is a new project or the meetup one you were working on? This is the one that I actually made it for the meetup. And normally I wouldn't like re-explain this, but WebDev Cody is a goat in my eyes. So I'm going to kind of explain this a little bit real fast. But I was on the Steam Machine website and they were displaying pretty valuable information in a production error. And I had just been so lucky to be on the website and I screenshot it before they did like a full rollback to a previous version and got rid of the errors. Their consoles actually displayed a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily want the public to see. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is no shade to the development teams or anybody involved in that regard, but I felt this is a lot that software developers could learn from. And so I kind of made an impromptu talk based off of that and made like an impromptu demo with some basic skills to kind of go over it. Will these files be available? It's actually already on my GitHub. So if you go to thedthompsondev.com, you'll see it in like one of the most recent repos because I uploaded it all yesterday there. But I do want to add some like little nuances and changes. So if you do fork it or you do star it, probably check back in like a day. And I'm going to try and add a little bit of documentation from like my speaker notes of the slides. So that way you can kind of see everything with it as well. But if you wanted to clone this, you absolutely could. And all you got to do is npm install it and everything would be up and running the way that you need it to. Cool. Then let's say, for example, we have the bug with search. So if we did, we entered some value here, you would obviously see this is a terrible error on the level of Steam machine errors where they kind of displayed everything. We would never want this displayed to the public. This is just way too much information. This is terrible. So a potential fix for this instead would be kind of using the environment-specific error handling that we discussed earlier, right? So maybe there's something that we want to display in the development environment so the developer can kind of keep track of things, but we would never want to display this in like a production environment, right? So we kind of see the error details there, right? And then we have development mode. So this information below is only visible in development mode. We would never want to showcase this to like an end potential user, right? And so now, if this works correctly, let me see here. I'm going to change this real fast. This may not work, but it should theoretically work. Where is it? Search page, fix. And so here, where is my value for prod and development? And then if we were now to go to the production environment and I swap that, we now see if we enter this, boom, we've got it working the way that it should work. Test, what test? You're there. D Secret Studios, what's going on? And so now in a production environment, this is what we'd want the user to see instead. All right. So different ways of handling that. So I'd want different ternaries there or try catches to make sure that we're avoiding that. And again, a lot of this comes down to stuff that should already be known to a certain degree, but it comes back to the same thing. It's like, are you following the processes? Are you doing things in the way that you should be doing it, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. And then let me scroll back up here. We already covered the error boundary one. Let me go back to my slides for a second. So environment specific handling, right? So it's like we just went through like the same verbose error messages shown in both development and production environment leaks. We would never want that, right? So using environment variables, and if you're not familiar with hiding your API keys, I'm going to release a tutorial hopefully over the weekend. I already recorded. I just got to edit the thing, and we'll post that up. And so that right there would be a great way to have best practices. If you're not familiar with how to hide environment variable keys, you could have a .env file, which you also have. Make sure it's in your git ignore, and you can place your API keys in there under a variable name, and then you can get that through like process env and putting that variable name there. So anything user facing, I would want to, especially error messages, I would want my API keys or anything UI error related to be handled before it's kind of showcased there. So I just kind of showcase this, but we would never want anything there. So if process.env.node_env is equal to development, we would obviously show things related to the development environment. But this right here is how you would get the value from your .env file for your API keys. So I would never want to, oh my God, Naomi. This is a joke if people don't know, because I have literally flipped out on people for this. For those that don't know, we do a cohort program, and I'm located in Dallas, but it is a remote program, but it is done by the Dallas Software Developers Group that I lead here. And in that cohort program, I had people literally sharing API keys in the Discord. And I'm like, these aren't dummy API keys. Like, these are attached to somebody's credit card. What are y'all doing? Like, don't do this. And the worst part was, it was during the time of the cohort where we actually made it visible to the public. And so I had to manually go in there and delete everything because I was like, I went off, not in a malicious way, but it's like, this needs to be memorable. Never do this mistake. And that's the reason why that joke. I had my API keys under my bed next to my pad. You're a smart one. That's almost as good as putting it on a it's almost as good as putting on a Post-it and putting it on the front of your computer. Like, I worked at a company where quite a few people did that. Not in the development side, other sides, but now that's a community. Yep. So I think that one there in particular is like a really great way to kind of avoid and circumvent a lot of this. And so third-party API error wrappers. So we kind of talked about this one earlier as well. But the idea here is an external API, if it fails and it's providing an error message, I shouldn't allow the error messaging of this third-party tool to expose anything that I have internally. So maybe I'm using Stripe, or maybe I'm using AWS or something along those lines, and there's an error that occurs. I shouldn't necessarily be passing their determined error, because their error might actually be for the developer to read, and there might be information in there that you would never want to expose. So by creating a wrapper for it, or you're creating some kind of fallback UI where if it fails, you're able to log that, obviously. So for example, like here, some error maps that I was thinking through, like card declined. Your card was declined, please try another method, or insufficient funds. This is relevant information, and we'd probably want to pass some of it. But what if it said like too many payment attempts, try again in a few minutes, and then it maybe put in like card information there? You wouldn't want to redisplay that. That would be terrifying. I hide them in a public Google Doc. Okay, Anthony. And then here, as long as it's behind the spoiler tag, it's fine. Unbelievable. Y'all, Naomi loves chaos, and this right here, you're just feeding this a little bit. So yeah, I mean, the way that I look at this here, right? there's several things. You can wrap something in an error boundary. You should have like a default try catch, which to me is like a very common practice that maybe some people forget to utilize. So that right there would help you circumvent a lot of this. Another one would be like having fallback UI, obviously for like handling errors or error categories, etc., and putting them in your catch block so that now you're able to kind of have something there if something goes wrong. But of course, logging it. If you're getting an error and the only thing that you're doing with it is like console logging it just to get rid of the error that TypeScript may give you for not utilizing it, you need to be on top of that. You need to log it because, again, the biggest thing for debugging, especially when we're talking about massive applications, not something simple as this, right? Like this, for all intents purposes, is pretty simplistic, right? Like, this is the problem here. Let's say we have a JWT token that was expired and it passes the user details. This would be terrifying to pass through. You would never want to pass this. So a potential fix for this obviously would be, obviously your session has expired. Please log in again. This is a way better experience and lets the user know things, right? Versus what it is that we're doing. And then of course you could see what like their profile would potentially look like. Danny constantly has to temper my unhinged behind in Discord. Definitely. I've just come to know you at this point, Naomi. And then, I think I disabled checkout, right? Yes. Okay. I disabled yesterday because I found a bug in it and I didn't want to deal with that. But regardless, you can kind of see everything in that area. And so, like when I think of the API wrapper, it's like my rule or thought process is I don't trust Stripe. Right? I don't trust AWS. I don't trust Google Cloud. I don't trust their rules. I love them as a product because I'm obviously utilizing them, but I don't trust their errors not to leak my internal information or my keys. You wrap it, you translate it, you sanitize it. Never trust third-party APIs to do that for you because they don't, especially when it comes to APIs, they don't know who's reading the message. So they're going to give you everything. I'd rather not have that hope that they're going to do the right thing for me. Instead, I'd rather focus on that myself. And so again, I know we covered 5 different patterns. It's 5 layers of defense, but you're no longer reacting to errors, but you're managing a strategy for errors. Because it's not if an error occurs, it's when it does, because there is going to be a scenario where it does. And so being vigilant and being on top of that, honestly, is best practices. And let's see, I feel like I covered all these talking points. So there's the potential back off. We already covered that. Okay. Golden rules of error handling. Never expose internal details to users. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. Keep stack traces, server IDs, database queries, and connection strings hidden from your user, but maintain it for your logging purposes. Always log detailed errors internally. So capture comprehensive error context, including stack traces and all that good stuff. Give users actionable guidance. This goes back to the area that I talked about in regards to trust, right? Transform a cryptic error into clear, plain, practical instructions, like contact customer service with this reference number, or please check back in 60 minutes, something along those lines. Tell users what happened, why it matters, and exactly what they should do or shouldn't do next. I think that kind of removes them. Don't make users guess how to recover. And that goes back into the area of trust. Right information at the right time with the right context goes a long way. And of course, test your error states. We already covered sanitization, but really test your error states. Make sure if you give it a varying degree of errors that it's catching them. And if it's not catching them, you found an exposure, go ahead and go into that. Try catch will catch a lot of situations, but maybe you have a specific scenario that it doesn't catch. You should be thinking about that as well. Wouldn't it make good practice to just implement those things no matter the size of your app? To me, it would be like building muscle memory. Of course. Will people do that? No. But of course, and that's with anything, right? Like it's the same thing why whenever I teach in a boot camp or something, HTML, I don't teach basic HTML. We go directly into semantic HTML. And it's because if that's your default knowledge of how HTML will work, you'll always reach for that instead of a div for everything. And I think that's like a very good practice to hold no matter where you are. the earlier you get people used to accessibility, the less of a quote unquote burden it feels, and more it feels like this is a natural thing that we should be doing. Quick wins for your Mondays, right? So obviously it's Friday. Don't deploy on Friday, but maybe on Monday when you go back to work, you're thinking about a couple things, right? So add an error boundary around an app shell, or add an error boundary around a component that you're thinking about. Audit your UI and API errors for exposed credentials. I think that would be like a good thing. And if you find one, document it, share it, be vocal. Make sure your team knows that it was you, but also maybe make sure other people know, maybe like a product manager or something, that we need to dedicate time and resources for the sprint to this, because this is a massive vulnerability and you want to solve this before it gets exposed anywhere else. Of course, add environment-specific error displays. I think that would go well. Also, wrap at least one third-party API call with an adapter or a translator. Put it in a wrapper of some sort. And then, of course, add a retry back off to your flakiest API calls, because maybe that will end up saving you in the long term and helping people out. And of course, if you want to learn more, I was supposed to enter my GitHubs here, but regardless, enter your, you can go to my GitHub. The link is there. Actually, I'll go to it right now. Here is the front end meetup talk. That's the talk that I gave last night. So you can kind of see that there. You can also go to OWASP. Let me go ahead and delete that now. You can go to error handling patterns. It's in the repo. And there's also, of course, the OWASP error handling guide. And of course, anything in relation to error boundaries, it's in the React documentation as well. Thank you, questions, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we covered a lot for an hour. Let me bring this back over here now. Make the tickets today so you remember on Monday. That is true. Friday motivation is an interesting thing. A lot of motivations on Friday that you'd say after the weekend are never remembered after the weekend. So this is like an easy time to make a reminder. And I'll tell you what, even if you don't make a ticket for it, you know what I'm really big on? My calendar. So maybe at 10 a.m., so not 9 a.m., but maybe an hour after you've been at work at 10 a.m., you make a calendar reminder to, hey, check these things real fast. That could be a cool, good reminder for yourself as well. I'll give you there. Absolutely agree with that, though. The fact that we have so many people hanging out, thanks, y'all. I know this is kind of impromptu and there wasn't any real notice for this one. So the fact that people are hanging out, that's pretty cool. I think we're going to start doing a lot more of these. I want to do some coding live streams again, because I really miss doing some of those. So I think that's going to be on the agenda for some of the things that we're doing. I may even start doing some of the commit your talk stuff. Are y'all? I don't think y'all are familiar with commit your talk in here, right? Let me bring that up real fast. This is something I've been working on tremendously. And I think a lot of y'all will get value out of this one. We've been doing this every week, by the way. Commit your talk. I've been working on this night and day. NPM run dev. Let me bring this back over here. And commit your talk. What is a hydration area? Okay. I'll share my screen for commit your talk. Really great question. I'll share this. How do you usually prioritize which error handling improvements to implement first? For me, it would probably be first order severity. Like, how big is this error to where we're exposing the company? Like, if we're exposing API keys, if we're exposing internal naming conventions, that's probably going to have a higher rate of priority for me than anything else. But if we don't have those severities, then I'd probably go for the quickest wins, right? So that way you have something that you could measure, you could showcase to your other team members and things like that, or even like external individuals from there. So that would probably be like the way that I would personally approach it. What is the quickest wins that I can get from these implementations or these fixes? Really good question, though. Let me go through and drop likes on all these comments real fast. What did I miss? Not a lot. Like, we covered 5 patterns of error handling, and this recording will still be up after the fact, so that's something that you could definitely review as well, and kind of like go over and see what you would need there. Nice, thank you. I just like reading your code. It helped me test myself. Oh, appreciate that. This is Commit Your Talk. So if you listen to the podcast, I've kind of mentioned this a couple times. This has been a thing that we created for the Discord, and essentially like an easy way to kind of think about this, even though it's very different, but it's like a Toastmasters with software developers or people that are in software adjacent fields, like maybe product managers and things like that. I've really been thinking through this nonstop. It originally started with like 5 levels of curriculum, and now I believe I'm at 13, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 levels of curriculum. And the idea here is, number one, the goal is to help software developers that don't feel like they're necessarily great communicators find a way to communicate. And it's using what I call the CYT framework, the Commit Your Talk framework. So the approach is a framework for becoming a true technical diagnostician. It's really to help you change the way that you're approaching problems and tasks. Instead of being like a short order cook or a mechanic, you're becoming more of a diagnostician and a problem solver, and you're talking like one. So for an engineer, this is not sales. Like, you're not trying to convince people of something. You're going for a root cause analysis for human beings, right? So you don't just fix the symptom, maybe a PM's vague ticket. You use questions to find the disease, so like a surgeon or a doctor's approach, the underlying business problems. And so, for example, I actually go to one of the scripts here. So I created some scripts, right? And so, for example, let's say you're a junior dev and you're trying to approach your senior dev. So you Slack a senior dev. Hey, I'm stuck on this new ticket. Can you help me? This is what I call the pass the work kind of message. It's vague. It provides no context. It forces the senior dev to stop the work, stop their work to do yours, which is never great. But the other thing too is you've put the burden on them to respond. And I can tell you, as someone who's received those messages, nothing makes you take a deeper breath and go, than something like this. Because now I don't know what you're stuck on. I don't know what you tried. I don't know what you've done. I don't know anything. And so it's hard for me to really support you in that regard, right? So now here, the idea is you Slack a senior developer. Hey, senior dev, I'm stuck on ticket 235, the authentication bug. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get the user's role from the JWT. What I've already tried, I've tried to jwt.decode. I've even checked the user.payload, but the role field is missing. I've also checked the docs for the auth service. Now I know this is what you've done, this is what you've done, this is what you've done. So I know anything that I recommend or guide you towards will not be any of those items. It helps me understand what it is that you're really stuck with now. My specific question is, am I looking in the wrong place for the role, or do I need to add it to the tokens scope somewhere else? That right there, it's, while simplistic, so much value came out of that, even though you're at a junior level, right? Or you could be another senior that doesn't necessarily know how to approach this problem, right? This structured framing shows respect for their time, obviously. You've proven that you're not lazy. You've been doing the legwork. You've done your homework, and you've given them like a high-level specific question that could probably answer in 30 seconds instead of spending 30 minutes trying to debug what you've already done. And if you notice here, I've created scripts at like 10 levels of areas here, right? So if you're put in a meeting, right, and let's say you're asked something randomly that you don't necessarily know, your default might be like, oh, wow, I don't know. This is a dead end. It feels awkward. It makes you also come across as maybe unknowledgeable on the product that they're talking about. But what you could say instead is like, you know what? That's a great question. My initial thought is X, but I don't have the data to back that up. So I'd need to check the production logs to confirm or check something else. Now the action is, I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So I'm going to find out. I will Slack the correct answer to this group by 3 p.m. today. You've turned, I don't know, into a very confident 3-step process plan, and you appear organized, you appear very honest, but you also appear reliable, which I think is crucial. And so this is just an example of like some of the scripts that we have here. You can see at like level 5, for example. Maybe your boss is saying, I just don't feel like your team is I just feel like your team isn't moving fast enough. So now we hitting like diagnose level questions, like, to help me understand, can you walk me through what you're seeing that makes you feel that way? Is there a specific project that you're worried about? Well, the boss might say, well, the login feature just seems to be dragging on. Okay, I've got some more insight now. I agree, it is. Right now, my team is splitting its time 50-50 between the feature and 3 other urgent projects. Because they're context switching, that one feature is taking twice as long as it should. So I'm curious, in a perfect world, what would you rather have? One project that's 100% done right now, totally willing to make that a priority, or the 4 projects that are 25% done? Your boss is like, well, obviously, like one project that's 100% done, obviously. Perfect. Then I'd like to propose a solution. If you notice, this is not like a junior level conversation. This is like team lead, principal engineer lead, staff engineer lead, and maybe your engineering manager or your skip, which is maybe your director. This right here is that diagnostician approach. That would be like great context. So we've been working and thinking through a lot of that on the communication aspect side alone. And so this is, people have been loving it. So every Monday at noon, we do this call via our Discord, but now we just moved it to Zoom. But every Monday at noon, this is completely free. But I'm working right now. If you see like the sign-in portion, let's see here. And I worked in the authentication of this, and I will move this here. But it's using Work OS as the auth for it. And the essential idea, some of this is static right now, but the essential idea is this would show you your overall completion data of like how many talks that you've been at, the attendance that you've had of like sessions that you've been to. And if we're hosting a session that day, you'd be given a code so that way you'd get credit for the session. So you could kind of put in whatever, and you could submit your attendance for that. And then, of course, you'd have all these other details as well. And then it'll show like hours of practice, vocal variety, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it would show you like the session details and curriculum that you would have ahead of you. Yes. But just because it might not apply to your role now, it doesn't mean that's not a good skill to have. Of course, better communication all around is the idea. And then the ultimate goal, it might not necessarily be anyone's goal, but the ultimate goal is to finally be at a level where you feel confident enough, maybe giving a conference talk. And so we're building through that. So meetups, conference talks, etc., to kind of get you at that level. Because I truly believe like everyone has an idea or an experience that can help others benefit from it. And so the idea here is like, hey, this is something that we're doing. And so, of course, we're at a level now where we're building, what is it called? Curriculum for that, but of course, past that as well. And so some of this you can see is remote first leaders. So maybe you're working in a remote organization and you're a leader for that. So kind of what does that look like? Async code reviews, for example. And so like one example of this is, hey, maybe you're sending a message. I'm reviewing this at 2 p.m. my time, which is 11 yours. No rush to response. I know you'll see this tomorrow. So the implementation looks solid overall. Particularly love the error handling on line 47. I did notice on line 82, we're accessing user underscore ID without a null check, right? So if user ID is null, which can kind of happen with an anonymous user, for example, that would throw a type error in production. I would rather there be some kind of ternary here where we're checking for like, is user ID, optional chaining of name. Otherwise, let's go ahead and put it as an anonymous user. It allows that to be a more thorough thought process for the developer and the user as a whole. But of course, like we're circumventing certain issues. What is the tech stack for the site? Everything that I try to do whenever it's open source related is full stack JavaScript. And it's funny because like I actually wanted to build this with Java, but because I had the idea to make it open source, I defaulted back to JavaScript for it. But of course here, like now, if you're an engineering manager or a tech lead or a staff engineer in a remote capacity, these are like certain areas where you can kind of grow as a leader in that regard. But right now, I'm trying to get this at a stable state first before I open it up full stack, and then we'll kind of go from there. But even on, if you were to go to repos, if you were to look at the repo there for Commit Your Talk is there, but there's a lot that needs to still happen before I'm at a position where I feel it'll be great for people to kind of contribute to it. My favorite approach in code reviews, I never say this is wrong or this approach is better. It's always, could you explain why you chose this implementation? Absolutely. Hey, I'd like to propose this approach. What do you think? Yeah, or the other thing is one thing that I do is I had a name for it and I can't remember right now off the top of my head. I think it was visibility through explanation. And the idea here is as you're explaining it to me, maybe start realizing certain things. And so, or maybe there's nuance that you have that I just don't have, right? So as you're explaining it to me, maybe I'll grab that nuance as well. So either my clarity is now fixed or your clarity is fixed, either way. So I like to go through that method. And then at least if I understand why they did something, and then through their explanation, I still realize like there is a better way, we now have a collaborative learning moment. So that's definitely my approach as well. Spring Boot feels clunky to me. Man, I don't know. Java's my background originally, so I always like to try and build stuff with it. But I will say that there's definitely things that if you come from a JavaScript ecosystem, things feel great in that regard, right? And so it's definitely fast in certain aspects, but if you're trying to make like enterprise level applications or keep your skills valuable for an enterprise scenario, that's definitely one way. All right, y'all. We are like 16 minutes over time. I really scheduled this to be an hour, but we're 16 minutes over. Over 500 people hanging out with me just on some random stream. So thank you. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Hopefully, if you want to review the recording, you can as well. If you want to share it out, if you think there was something valuable in this, maybe hit that reshare button or share that link with somebody else or tweet it out or Blue Sky it or whatever it may be, or share it on LinkedIn. You never know, right? Obviously, that helps me, but of course, helps keep our community together as well. And also, if you're interested, we're about to start a whole Discord series. If you're not in our Discord, check it out. Really great community. But we're about to start a series of Discord-only workshops that are like technical workshops, maybe last an hour or too long. And the idea there is to kind of help people grow and learn from experts. So if you're interested in giving like a 2-hour workshop, maybe you've never given one before and you want an opportunity to do so, or you want to kind of hang out with a great group of developers, please check it out and hang out with us, right? All right, y'all. It's been real. It's been fun. Oh, and if you haven't, check out the Programming Podcast. We had a new episode drop today as well, so check that out. When are we going to get Danny tunes? I'm not a great guitar player. It's something that I do whenever I am like super stuck on a bug and I'm just trying to get past it. So don't worry. I'm not hanging up my keyboards anytime soon. That guitar is paying 0 bills. But maybe one day we'll do something on there. You never know. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Bye, everybody.